Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this month's monthly book review. With me is my good friend, colleague, co-host, and all-round good dancer, Carly O'Donoghue. So, Carly, how are you doing
You
today?
know it. Yeah. Hello.
I've never really asked you, are you a dancer?
No, I'm not.
You're
Oh,
not?
well, not at the start of the night. I think everyone's a dancer at the end of the night, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, you get 6 drinks in me, and
Six.
I will move. Okay, so today we're talking about, let's hold the book up. This is for the YouTube video of people watching, just to prove we actually have the book. And we are going to be talking about, and we're reviewing, Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. And on the front cover, it says, making smarter decisions when you don't have all the facts.
And pretty much
Ooh.
that sums up the book, doesn't it?
Pretty much just read the cover and you can move on.
But we wanted to really talk about who this book is for to begin with.
Yes, and who it's not for.
And who it's not for, because
Yep.
this book is very different from the other book that we did last month, which was Ash Barty's book. This book is a lot heavier in content. Fantastic content,
I
but
love it.
it's not an easy book. No, this book, after reading it, you do make your decisions differently because they teach you how to do it and the probability of making a good decision.
Can I talk about who it's not for?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is who the book is not for. If you're an employee and you don't like to think, and I'm not saying that in a bad way, because I had some people that work with me who were great employees, really good podiatrists, but they didn't actually have to think outside the box too much. I put the systems in place and they just followed the systems, never caused any problems. Patients loved them, good people to work with. But the word on the book here, which is the big part that some of them struggle with sometimes, thinking. They didn't want to think. So if you're someone that does not like to think, you like everything just laid out for you, so you do not have to think, this book is not for you. It will hurt your head.
Yeah, and look, there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Absolutely
not at
nothing wrong
all.
with that. But it is a book that if you're in a position to make decisions, and
Definitely.
when you make decisions, and especially as a business owner, they need to be good decisions. So it sets apart how to actually, everyone makes decisions, but this is how to make a good decision based on the facts that you have and the probability of actually getting a good outcome.
Yeah. So, and when we're talking about decision makers, any person that presents a treatment plan to a patient or has to decide on a treatment plan, if this includes employees. So anyone that actually is a really heavy decision maker, I think, may not necessarily enjoy the book, but I think you'd read the book and go, aha, especially probably the first quarter of the book, read the first quarter and then pass it on.
Yeah, look, we were saying that the first quarter of the book pretty much has all the content in there, and it goes into depth. So she speaks, Annie Duke is the author of the book, and she speaks quite academically about the points that she's trying to get across, which is great, but that's exactly why it's not light reading. So you're getting fantastic information that you can actually take away with you and use every day that you're making a decision, but it's not, I'm going to grab a book and a glass of wine and sit down and read something. I did try that and I'd go, whoa, this is not working.
It's not warm and fuzzy.
Put that down. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important to point out too, Annie Duke was a professional poker player, one of the best in the world.
Oh, we should mention that.
So this is the end, and she's also spent a certain amount of time at university, like a research level psychology, looking at decision making. So she's not just somebody that, oh, this book sounded like a good idea and put it together. She's used her poker playing experience as her examples of how she learned to become a better poker player, was all based on decision making.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm a quiet person. We know that, but I want to say something from
What
the
did you
book.
say? You're a quiet person?
No, I'm not quiet. Well, sometimes I'm quiet, but that quote, I love quotes.
Quote. A quote person. I thought you said
quotes.
quiet. Okay,
No,
go for
no,
it.
I
Go for a
love quotes.
quote.
And I just want to quote something from the book. And this is, again, early on, page 22. She says, if we want to improve in any game, as well as in any aspect of our lives, we have to learn from the results of our decisions. And it goes into, we can learn from our mistakes, but you really want to minimize those mistakes as much as possible. And that's where the learning comes in. But how to actually minimize those mistakes is to know how to make a good decision and be comfortable with uncertainty. And that's what separates being a decision maker and being a good decision maker, is that you become comfortable with the uncertainty that's out there.
Oh, definitely. And you know how I know we're in tune and why these book reviews work well? It's because I just went to page 22 of my book, and just to prove, I had that
Oh,
marked
there you go.
right there. That same thing that you actually marked, I actually marked exactly that same page. If you want to improve in any game as well as any aspect, yeah, I had that same thing marked.
Yeah.
It is a good point, though.
Look, it is a really good point. And, you know, it talks about, when we talk about probability, now probability, they say that don't look at your decisions in black and white. So there's always that area or that shade of gray. And if we misrepresent the world of decision making into just black and white, it will actually affect our ability to make a good decision.
Yeah, and sometimes people hold back from making decisions because they want to make sure, if I make this decision, they are going to 100% get the outcome that they want. And really early in the book, she says, how sure am I that this plan will work? And if 5 out of 6 times, you might think, well, that's good, but it's not if it's Russian roulette.
No, that's right. No, that is true. That is true. And they also talk about Annie talks about, you know, just because you've got a good outcome from a decision doesn't actually make it a good decision.
No.
And they do delve into that, which was really interesting.
They talk about that a lot because sometimes someone will make a really shitty decision. They didn't look at all the facts. They just jumped into it, made a decision, but they end up with a really good result. And that can be a really bad thing for them in the future because they go, oh, this worked for me last time, therefore it will work again. In the future, and the past doesn't equal the future. So sometimes these bad decisions, without gathering all the information and jumping in too early, just because you got a good result, it still could have been a bad decision.
Yeah. Yeah, she's saying that decisions are really bets on the future. So everyone out there who is a decision maker, you're making bets on what the future may hold. And you can't make a good decision without all of the facts. And so if you're speaking to one person and getting one person's point of view and making a decision that's going to affect your business or your employees, then you haven't got all the facts because you've only spoken to one side of the story. So the outcome may not be the best outcome.
Yeah, and she said that's the difference between an expert and a rookie.
Yeah.
Is they might look at the same situation, and the expert, based on all their past experiences, if they take that all into account, that's why more than likely an expert will make a better decision than a rookie, because they've got more past experience and more information to actually make a decision. It still doesn't mean it's going to work out exactly how they planned it.
No, and don't base she was talking about as well is, and like the whole point of us talking about this book is to summarize it for everyone. And so that's why we're going through certain points, maybe a little bit quickly, but it's, but it all boils down to the same sort of concept. I've just lost what I was talking about then.
Oh, that's all right.
Edit that out.
Edit out of the audio, not the video. People watching this just
Oh,
go,
there we go.
there we go.
That's-
Carly stuffed up.
That's what I was talking about. And you don't base a decision whether it was actually a good decision at the time on the outcome. So part of the good outcome depends on luck. And because she's obviously a poker player, so a part of their outcomes as poker players does depend on luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she gave a good example. I can't remember what page it was on. I've got it marked. I'm not going to look. But she was talking about the difference between chess and poker.
Yes.
And she said chess is really a skill. It's the more you play, you learn moves, and it doesn't mean that every single move is a winning move, but it's someone who's a very skilled chess player will always beat someone who's crap. But in poker, you can have someone who is the best poker player in the world, and you and I could sit down with them, have one hand, and statistically, you and I could beat them.
Yeah, exactly.
A number of times.
No, yeah. And that's why really good card players hate playing against people that are amateurs because
Yeah.
you don't know what you're doing and you throw your hand down. They go, whoa, you're not supposed to do that. You know, what do you mean I'm not supposed to do that? So they're basically playing the game, but the probability, that's where the luck comes into whether the good poker player can actually win against an amateur because
Yeah.
they do ridiculous things.
I remember once.
Uncertainty. That's the uncertainty.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. I was playing blackjack one night and I wasn't really paying attention. I'd had a few drinks and it was a bit late. I should have just gone to bed. And I don't gamble much at all anyway. So all of a sudden I flipped on 20.
Oh,
Who the
God.
hell flips on 20?
No, that's why there was a bit of a silence there.
Yeah, so all of a sudden I'm
Is
at
it
the
a
table.
true
The lady
story?
just looked at me and just said, what? And I said, yeah, flip. And she sort of paused and I hadn't even looked at my cards. Next thing, as she's throwing the card out, I look down and go, you've got 20, you idiot. And I pulled an ace.
Yeah, that's the luck.
And got 21. Now, I thought, isn't that very cool? The player next to me, who had just split 2 kings, that would have given him 21. And so he wasn't happy at all. He ended up busting on that hand and then got the shoots of me, so I left the table.
Yep. So you ended up with a good result,
Yeah.
but from a bad decision.
Really bad decision.
Yep.
And if you tried to play cards that way all the time, and that's why when you watch people playing poker, and she gives a perfect example, the difference between a professional poker player and an amateur, the professional will probably only play 2 or 3 hands that they're dealt out of 10, whereas the amateur will play every hand.
Yep.
And the professional, once they make a decision to pull out, that they've thrown their cards in, they don't care what cards come next. They're not even watching the rest of the game. It's not important to them because they've got no skin in the game. Whereas the amateur will throw the cards in, but then they'll watch every card and they'll remember the cards they threw in. And then at the end they go, I would have won that hand if I had kept my cards in. Which then forms this belief in their head. If I had stayed in, I would have won.
Yeah.
And therefore, the next time they stay in and they get their ass kicked.
Yeah. 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 Look, I just want to go back to the probability again.
Yes.
Which is, ties into that. A really good analogy for what she talks about a lot in the book is, okay, say you've got, like, you're trying to make a decision, a good decision based on the facts that you have, and it's about the probability. You have family members come over for a barbecue and you're going to play some games, and let's say you're shooting some hoops.
Yep.
Now there's 2 people as captains, you're one of them, you're picking some family members in your team. Now, we all know that there's some really unskilled people in your family that is, they're going to throw it at the fence or they're going to throw it on the rise, go nowhere near the hoop.
Yeah.
And you know who those people are. And then there's some really sporty people in your team and in your family, and you want them on your team. So the probability of picking the people that are really good at sport on your team, you're pretty much increasing the chances of a good outcome for your team. Where luck comes into play and where the uncertainty comes into play of making a good decision versus a good outcome is that you might have that skilled family member throw the ball in, he shoots the hoop, nothing but net, and you go, yeah, high fives all around, it's great. You up to round 2, and they just pretty much roll the ball on the ground. Hopeless. Some 5-year-old that's in the family comes up and everyone's going, oh my God, he's on my team. This is so embarrassing. Throws it, underarm, up, boom, straight through the net.
Nothing
but net. And then he does it again. The probability of him doing it twice in a row is unheard of. But that's the sort of uncertainty that you need to keep in your mind when you're making a decision to make it a good decision. Now, the bad team or the team that had the 5-year-old in it, overall, they win the game. So you need to sit back and go, okay, so if I'm going to make that decision again of who's on my team, would I actually make the same choices knowing all the facts that I have? So you've got a 5-year-old who can hardly hold the ball, or you've got some really good members of the family who are sporty. The decision to actually choose the sporty people, you'd probably do again. And most likely you'd get a good outcome. It's just that this time you didn't get a good outcome, but it was still the best decision at that time.
Yeah, and she uses that example of the guy who let somebody go in the company they got rid of the CEO. The board got rid of the CEO of a company, and I think
Yep.
it's all happened to us in our podiatry clinic when we're on the fence. Oh, should I let this person go or shouldn't I? And
Yep.
you're weighing up all the fors and yes. But if you stick with the facts and look at the information that you've got and you make a decision, the best
Mhm.
decision is to let them go, and you
Yeah.
let them go. And you can
Yep.
always guarantee the day you let a podiatrist go is the day the phone rings twice as much as what it normally does. All these patients all of a sudden are trying to come in, and you go, oh my God, why did I do that? That was a bad decision. But based on the facts, it was a good decision to let them go. Long term usually proves it was a good decision.
Yeah. And look, guys, always stick to your guns when you're thinking about, gee, is this person right for my business, or do you have to let someone go? Gather all the facts and make a really good decision. Don't just shoot from the hip and make a decision because you think you have to make one. Just take your time, get all the facts, and for the long term, because when you employ people, as soon as you employ them, they're there. You can't just let someone go the next day, because the time and effort it takes you to get someone on your team is a lot. So you need to make a good decision. I think this book and this is why this book is a really good book
Mm.
for decision makers.
I definitely, that's what I said right from the start. If you're a decision maker, you need to read the book.
Yep.
And you can probably read through the first half and go, okay, if you don't have a lot of time, read the first half and move on.
Only read the first half, and the second half goes into examples, which is still really good. But again, this book, you only really need to use the first.
But she gives an
First bit of
example
it.
of, was it Nick the Greek, who was a poker player.
Classic.
And she said he was a professional poker player, been playing for years, but he just constantly made bad decisions and he never learnt from his mistakes. And I think podiatrists sometimes do the same thing where they're advertising somewhere and it's not working. I mean, everything is telling them it's not working, but they're too scared to pull up stumps and say, oh no, I've made a bad decision, because they think it just reflects on them. I think pulling up stumps early and realizing I've made a bad decision and learning from that and then not making the same mistake again is a good thing.
Absolutely. Everyone expects you to make mistakes. If you're a decision maker, you will make mistakes. You'll make a lot of them. Where you will fail is that if you don't learn from your mistakes and pivot and do something different, that's a whole different game there. So the more decisions you make, the more mistakes that you will make. But
Yeah.
it's about not making the same mistake twice or three times.
Yeah. And to me, I think
Difference in
the biggest takeaway from the book, if I could sum up in one takeaway for me, would be don't look at the outcome. Don't focus on the outcome. Whenever you're making decisions, don't focus so much on the outcome. The outcome is the outcome based on the information you had at the time. So you might not use all the information, make a bad decision and end up with a good outcome. Or you might make you've got all the information, you make a fantastic decision and the outcome works out badly. So it's not about whether it was right or wrong or good or bad. It's just you make a decision based on the information you have and then just let the outcome happen.
Yep. No, I agree. My biggest take home would be your decision quality. So the quality in your decision making is so important. And, don't measure yourself by your outcomes all the time. I mean, yes, it does play an impact, but if you're making a decision on quality information, that's all you can do. You can't do anything else. So back yourself.
It was just one other part in the book here. It was on page 134, and they just told me about winning, and they said that when she was playing poker, she would go and talk to her brother, and she would go because her brother was a professional poker player as well, been playing well before her,
Mm-hmm.
and she used to go to him all the time and complain about all the hands that she lost, or when she had a night where she didn't win, and eventually he said to her, "Stop coming to me with complaining about the hands you lost. Come to me and let's talk about the hands you won." And she was going, I don't understand that. He said, well, let's talk about when you got a really good result, how did you make the decisions along the way to get that good result? Instead of trying to reflect back on what the decisions you made when you had a bad result. Normally, There could be luck involved.
Yep.
And I say the same thing to people all the time when you're looking at your marketing. Even when you run a great marketing campaign, you step back and ask yourself, if I did this campaign again, what would I do differently? So even when you do make all the right decisions and you get a great outcome, you still reflect and ask yourself, go through the process and how you had the success, and would you still change anything to end up with probably even better outcome?
Oh, it's such an important question to ask yourself. So if patients come through the door, they don't come back, you have a look at your notes, look at if you would do anything different. And even if like good results, bad results, that question is really important to ask yourself in, a lot of areas in your life.
Yeah. And I think we've all done it. You've had a patient and you'll be explaining something, and all of a sudden you say one thing. And as soon as you say it, you feel the temperature in the room change, the expression on their face, their body language changes,
Yep.
and you go, I don't think I should have said that.
Yep.
And it could be the information you give them. All of a sudden it was information overload, and you can see, boom. It wasn't that you said something inappropriate. It was just you gave them too much information. And now they're trying to make a decision with too much information, because the same thing works for them. For your patients are trying to make decisions on whether they should follow your treatment or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is not one person out there that hasn't made that mistake, especially early off, of giving patients too much information. It really does kill their decision-making process. So just don't do it.
Yeah. And just to finish up on, I just want to talk about like new graduates, for example. I think it's really important to help new graduates make decisions in their treatment planning. And if things don't always work out exactly how it should, be like Annie's brother, sit down with them and go through the patient files with them and say, okay, when you did this, why did you do that? And get them to think about the decision process and make sure they're not just doing it because that's the way they were shown at uni, or that's how they were shown at another employer or somewhere where they did work experience. Get them to explain their decision process. And even if they got a bad result, pat them on the back and say, at least you made a decision with all the facts. You didn't just make something up.
Absolutely. The thing I think that will make you grow more as a person is to knowing how to think. And I think a lot of people want to get told how to think, but when you're in that treatment room and you're trying to read the room with a patient or a staff member, if you can come back to the process of how to actually make a good decision, that's going to put you in a better, what's the word, Tyson, I'm looking for?
Frame of mind or?
No.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, you butchered that one,
didn't you?
Good
advice from me. That's a good advice day.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say?
Do you know what? I think I'm done.
You think you're done? Oh, well, I think we've covered the book. I would give this book a thumbs up. For anyone that makes decisions, I would definitely say yes. Grab yourself a copy of this book. Like I enjoyed the book that much. She's got 3 or 4 other books, and I ordered 2 of her other books to actually read through. So I like the way she writes. I like some of her stories. I like that she writes at quite a high level. Yeah. So like I said off air, if you're an academic, should chew this thing up. Academics should read this and help them with their students to make better decisions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I definitely would give it a thumbs up as well. It will sit on my bookshelf with the rest of the business books, and every time I look at it, it will remind me of, gee, did you make that decision with all the facts that you had? Like, what was your quality decision? And just little things like that you take away from books, is it stays with you, and it makes you a better employer, a better leader of your team, and just a better person of making decisions in life. Everyone makes decisions.
Your whole life is like, even when you buy a book, for example, when you're buying that book, you're betting that you're going to enjoy that book. You make a decision. When you order, well, I think she says in the book, when you order chicken instead of the steak, you're hoping you made the right decision, but you're basing it on the information you have at hand.
Yeah, decisions are betting on the future.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get a shitty piece of chicken. You should have gone the beef.
Should have gone the beef.
Okay, Carly, co-host, good dancer, colleague, and friend. So that could be a
We'll
T-shirt.
see you.
Yes, we will talk again next month
Yep.
with the next book. I've got one in mind that I know you already have a copy of it, and I don't, and I want to get a copy and read it. So that could be next
Okay.
month.
All right. Stay tuned.
Yes. Okay. Adela, if you're listening, because she said she does listen, she said we should announce the book each month.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know
Yeah.
what? Give us some feedback into what types of books you want us to review, because we're not actually going to review business books all the time. It's
Yeah.
going to be books that will relate to things that you can put into action. But if there's a book that you or there's a couple of books that you don't really know what to buy, just let us know.
Yeah.
We'll review them and then you can make a decision.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, Carly, I will talk to you again next month.
See you next month.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.